Guys, this is your reminder to lock in and reread whatever text you have for tomorrow. Do it whenever. Do not stay up late reading it. That will affect tomorrow. That is a stupid idea. But here is an Inspectacles, which is a good one to reread because it's quite short. And I'm going to get into some of the quotes that I'm noticing as I read it and some of the key points that I'm remembering. So to start off, Sheila addresses her mother as that, which reveals that she is infantilized. Remember infantilized for Sheila. Remember that is an important word for Sheila because it then helps to explain her growth throughout the play. But she starts off by repeatedly calling her mother that and her father, yeah. Is this the one you wanted me to have? Very, very important. It is about the materialistic thing and men's dominance and that. And then I really feel engaged is again back to Sheila and her characterization of being vain and materialistic. Then Eric is the first one to talk about war. The main theme that I'm going to focus on when talking about this will likely be the younger generation, seeing as my teacher believes that that is what will end up on the paper. And I just really like Sheila and Eric. But what about war? Eric is the first one to acknowledge it, and he is more aware and, lack of ignorance. And then on the other hand, Mr. Burling, the older generation, says things like the Titanic is unsinkable, absolutely unsinkable, which reveals the dramatic irony, seeing as the play was written after these happened, and we know it does sink. So to the audience, it is then showing Mr. Burling as being an unreliable man and a bit of a stupid one. And then there's a bit about Mr. Burling talking about knighthood, chance of knighthood and all that, to emphasize how important status is and how having a knighthood and getting that status would then allow him into the upper class, which is what Gerald is. The aristocracy, whereas he's the bourgeoisie. Remember, proletariat is the working class that is exploited specifically. The bourgeoisie is the Burlings, the middle class, and the upper class is the aristocracy. There is also part about gender here, with clothes being a sort of sign or token of their self-respect, which reveals that they believe that women are materialistic and vain, just like how Sheila was presented, which, if that's the opinion of someone as they're being brought up, that is likely how they'll end up, which is then linked into how the inspector becomes the voice that leads them into the right direction, the moral direction. And then the really important bit is with Eric. Eric is very important because the inspector, this bit here, the sharp ring of a front doorbell, is the inspector interrupting Mr. Burling's speech about capitalism with bees in a hive. And that's him interrupting it. But Eric is the first one to notice and to speak up about the inspector's presence. He is the first one to speak up and say that somebody is there. So he is the one helping welcome it in, which obviously we all know Edna. Edna opens the door and allows him in here, opening the door. Yeah. But, so Edna opening the door to socialism, but Eric is the first one to acknowledge it. And now we have the inspector, which is now here. And 2 hours ago, a young woman died in the infirmary. She's been taken there this afternoon because she swallowed a lot of strong disinfectant. Burnt her insides out, of course. The inspector throughout constantly says, of course, making it obvious that he is certain of what's being said. But he is very sure of himself. He is very dominant. Yeah. Another key quote, one person, one line of inquiry at a time. One person, one line of inquiry at a time. Which is showing, I don't even remember what it shows, but it's just a key quote for him. I just know it is. You've had enough of that, poor Eric, foreshadowing his alcoholism. I discharged her with Mr. Burling-Farringer. Is that why she committed suicide? When was this, father? Immediately accepts that it may be responsibility of, his family. It may be his family's responsibility. There is no question. He immediately accepts it. Then Mr. Burling refers to it as as her suicide as the wretched girl's suicide, showing their dismissal of the lower class, their lack of care for the lower class, further demonstrating the strong class divide. A chain of events which reveals and foreshadows how everything will then be linked. I cannot accept any responsibility. If we were all responsible for everything that happened to everybody we'd had anything to do with, it would be very awkward, wouldn't it? The lack of acceptance of responsibility, dismissal, bad upper class, bourgeoisie bad, aristocrats bad, capitalism bad, good looking girl. Again, the only worth a woman has is seen through her looks. It's my duty to keep labour costs down. Capitalism. Again, capitalism. It is capitalism again, with Mr. Burling being the older generation and being representative of capitalism. And labour costs down, showing that he has no regard for the lower classes. Again, the abuse of the proletariat and the exploitation of them. They could go work somewhere else. It's a free country. And again, it's showing how he is ignorant and naive to the struggles of the working class and the world around him, because they can't. Beneath that, we've got an important quote from Eric, which is, "It isn't if you can't go and work somewhere else," which is showing, again, the younger generation being the ones who aren't ignorant and the agents of change. That's something that was said so many times in year 10. Oh my God. But agents of change, and yeah. But after all, it's better to ask for the earth than to take it. From the inspector, again, about socialism and equality. And it's such a good quote. That is possibly one of my top 10 quotes. It's better to ask for the earth than to take it. Because then it's also showing how to reduce conflict and how socialism is the way to peace, and what Mr. Burling said before, peace and prosperity. That is the way to it, with socialism and taking care of each other. And just a reminder, because I forgot, the inspector is Priestley's voice. The inspector is the voice of Priestley. Priestley, that guy, the author. I warn you, he's an old friend of mine. Once again, dropping names and abusing that status. And the most important quote and best quote of the entire book: "I don't play golf." Golf being symbolic of the political game. The inspector does not play by the rules. He does not play the stereotypical games. He is not engaging with the wealth and with the capitalism. He does not play golf. And again, with Eric coming in with the, why shouldn't they try for higher wages? We try for the highest possible prices. It's Eric supporting the lower classes and being on the side of the proletariat. And the second the inspector came in, he fully went towards it, showing that the inspector has guided him to the side of socialism, and Eric is open to change and not as ignorant and hard-headed as Mr. Burling said. That's something this public school and varsity life you've had doesn't seem to teach you. How ironic that he is complaining about the effects of the school that he put him in, dragging her into this unpleasant business, talking again about how they see women as not being able to cope, how they're less than, which again is symbolic of the patriarchal society. And this is also context linking in with the suffragette movement, which is why Sheila becomes the guiding voice and member of the family and the one who is most open to change. Sheila is progressive and perceptive. Those are the words I was missing. She is progressive and perceptive. Again, Eric coming back with that might have started it. He again is showing his open-mindedness. It's just him being progressive as well. That might have started it. He is aware. He is accepting of the lower classes. All of that, just all of them linked together. And I've been so happy tonight. Oh, I wish you hadn't told me. So another thing is that Eric becomes more open-minded and towards socialism before Sheila does. However, Sheila's the one she voices it more. But destroying herself so horribly and I've been so happy tonight. Oh, I wish you hadn't told me. That is Sheila saying that it's her ignorance again and her selfishness coming through, with the cause being her infantilization, because she only sees herself and her life and her family, and she can't see past it because she doesn't see anybody else as significant or human. What the inspector does is he reveals that everybody is like real. She becomes self-aware. She becomes aware of her surroundings. She becomes more empathetic. Whereas here, she's like just very dismissive and rude and does not care enough, which is also very key if you're going to talk about her progression throughout the play, because by the end of the play, she's very open and the voice of the inspector, and takes a lot of responsibility because of social responsibility. What was she like quite young? Revealing that, again, the only thing they see women for, including other women, is their youth and their beauty. They are nothing more in that patriarchal society. Just to emphasize, pretty in quotations. And the inspector's so real for this. She wasn't pretty when I saw her today. Well, of course, if I'd known that earlier, I wouldn't have called you officious. So Mr. Burling's out of the hot seat and he's like, okay, I don't care what happens to the rest of my family. I'm not the only one in trouble. I don't care what you do anymore. Like, that's crazy. Turning around and just going, nah, don't care anymore. It's fine. Relief. Everybody else will get in trouble. We're all going down together. You talk as if we're responsible, because Sheila doesn't realise that she can take responsibility. It's her lack of understanding of the world because of the infantilization. You talk as if we were responsible. She doesn't see that she could be, that it's a possibility. It's not that she doesn't want to, it's that she doesn't understand that she can. And then just a plot point, that like a lot of these young women, she used more than one name. And now this is Sheila turning to the same side as Eric, saying perhaps that spoiled everything for her, which mirrors what Eric said earlier, saying that could have been what caused it. It's a rotten shame, which still shows a bit of ignorance, saying that it's just a shame because it is a significant thing, because it is somebody's life that's been taken. However, it's showing more of Sheila starting to understand. And then the inspector then says there are a lot of young women in this city, and saying that it's not an uncommon occurrence, which is him educating Sheila. That is not a harsh thing. That is him acting as guidance and as a teacher to the younger generation, showing Sheila what she could know about, revealing the truth. Then Sheila immediately, once she realizes she could understand this, she starts to catch on and goes, these girls aren't cheap labor, they're people. She's talking about how they're people, that she sees them as more than what her family see them as. She sees the proletariat as people. She just didn't understand how she was treating them and why it was wrong, because of her infantilization and the way that she's been treated. Why the devil do you want to go upsetting the child like that? Mr. Burling is infantilizing her further, calling her a child. She is a woman. She is a grown woman. She is getting married. I don't know how old she is exactly, but she's getting married, and I know she isn't a child. But that is, again, representing the infantilization of Sheila and why Sheila is so naive about what's going on with her. And Mr. Burling then doesn't question that his family may be in the wrong. It's just, you're the one doing the wrong. He's immediately turning the blame to the inspector and again refusing responsibility. And then the inspector says she's upsetting herself, which is then revealing that it is her own fault. She's upset because of something she's done herself, which is good because that means she shows guilt. If you turn in, you might have to turn out again soon. The inspector saying to Eric that even though he's had some drinks and stuff, he needs to stay because in the end it is revealed that he is significantly responsible for what happened. Often, if it were left to me, I wouldn't know where to draw the line, which is showing even in socialism, there is a lack of control and that it's human nature to exploit your position. However, both sides are bad, but we need to choose which is better. So this reveals that not everybody is pure and not everybody is completely moral. Everybody has flaws. However, the representation of the Burling family, in contrast to the Inspector, shows that the Inspector does moral evil. He's exploiting his position for other people for a moral reason. The Burlings are exploiting it for selfish reasons and to exploit just for their own gain, which is the issue of capitalism, that although both have their bad sides and their evil, capitalism is only for self-gain, whereas socialism is for community gain. So I'm really responsible. Sheila is taking responsibility. She accepts it, unlike her parents, whereas when Mr. Burling was told about it, and his consequence was the exact same as what happened to Sheila, which is mirroring the difference between their reactions. Mr. Burling chose to let her off a job. Sheila forced her to lose the job. Both of them had a choice to let her keep the job and continue, but they both chose not to. Mr. Burling rejected all responsibility. Sheila accepted it and wants to try and make amends in whatever way she can. I'd persuade Mother to close our account with them, which is showing her exploitation of her position once again, which is something she learned from the older generation because she's choosing her mother to close the account. And also, she's called her mother instead of the other one. She's now growing up, and it's showing that the Inspector is helping undo that infantilization and continue to teach her about the world. It was my own fault, taking responsibility. But I insisted, which also you could say mirrors Eric with Eva Smith. However, one is sexual, one is. However, this is also, again, about how both of them have caused such harm to this girl, but Eric is viewed as worse because he got her pregnant. So the true question is, why is one viewed as bad and the other not? Both of them take responsibility and both of them try to redeem themselves. However, Eric, everybody argues that he's just a horrible character and that he's a bad person. However, Sheila is allowed to have that redemption, which I would say is because she's a woman. So even though it's based in a patriarchal society, there is also things that affect men in a negative way, showing the true nature of a patriarchal society and how it benefits neither men or women because both of them have consequences. She was a very pretty girl too, again about women being seen as just for their looks. I went to the manager and told him that this girl had been very impertinent, which again shows her abuse of power and how the class divide then leads to exploitation of power. If she'd been some miserable plain creature, I don't suppose I'd have done it, but she was very pretty and looked like she could take care of herself. That is Sheila's jealousy, and again, women being seen as just their looks, even by other women. Patriarchal society is bad, says Priestley. Have been jealous of her. The Inspector telling Sheila what she is feeling to help her understand, which again is teaching her the truth. Do you mind if I give myself a drink, Sheila? Which is Gerald then being lured into the false sense of security of drinking because it allows people to relax. However, it then reveals the truth because from that one saying, in wine there is truth. How did you come to know this girl? Oh, don't be stupid. That is Sheila starting to gain power and just being a boss. Go on, Sheila. I'm editing this the same day. I had a slight crash out at this point. However, the words I was thinking of was that she became assertive and confident. You can use this video as revision. However, I expect you to go away and look at anything I couldn't remember. Go revise. Why, you fool, he knows. Of course he knows. Sheila showing that the Inspector is all-knowing and powerful, and he is the voice. He is omniscient, or whatever it is. Like, is it omnipotent is all-powerful? I think omniscient is all-knowing. Act 2! And I have read that under an hour. So it'll probably take me 3 hours to go through all of them. However, I have spent some time making this video, so it is really fun though.